What's up, everybody? Hope and pray that you're doing well. I wanted to talk to the leaders out there, whether you be a pastor or Sunday school teacher, anybody that's got some influence with someone, you're working in the ministry. I wanted to talk to you for just a few minutes because I know that you need encouraged also. We carry a heavy load, especially you pastors. A lot of you guys are, and your first ladies, they probably carry the blunt of the load. They're overlooked and underappreciated, and no one really even thinks about the first ladies of our house as much. And my hat's off to all of you spouses out there, ministers. But let's get to it. I wanted to use the book of Judges, chapter 7, and inside of this chapter, there's some beautiful truths about Gideon. But I want to highlight one particular aspect. If you remember, Gideon was called from the threshing floor. He said, "I'm the least of my family. I'm not," because God was wanting to use him as a judge to fight against Midian, who had brought the Israelites into captivity. So God was going to use Gideon to free the Israelites from Midianite slavery. And Gideon's just like, "God, I'm not the guy for this. I'm from the least of the tribes, least of the families." But God sees the heart. You'd be shocked at who God will call. And I need to remind myself of that. And maybe some of you pastors need to remind yourself of that. And maybe some of you need to remind yourself of that, because God can use anybody. And Gideon is a good example of that. And he's a humble man. He's a man that's saying, I don't feel like I'm worthy to do this, but ultimately he's going to accept the call of God. He puts out some fleeces, he has to have some signs. He's a lot like us. "God, if you want me to do this, let a red truck pass a green car and a blue Camaro honk their horn 7 times, and let the General Lee go by and play, that Dixie song." And if that's the case, then I'll think about maybe doing it. It's just crazy how, especially young people, young Christians, they do all that stuff. Have these fleeces out before God. We don't need fleeces anymore. We got the Spirit of God dwelling in us. He speaks to us. But that's where Gideon is at, and it shows his humanity. It shows that he's normal, just like you and me. So that ought to encourage us a little. But when we get into chapter 7, Gideon's on the move, and he's rounded up this army of 32,000 people, and they're getting ready to go to war. 32,000 people sounds like a lot, but it's really not when you're, going to, a wide scale battle like they're going to engage in. 32,000 people, and a lot of these guys weren't even real soldiers. But God says, "You know what, Gideon, I know that looks good to you, but you got too many people." And one of the things that we do, if we're not real careful, we create false narratives. And basically what I mean is we will write down the recipe before God tells us what to cook. Okay? And God might tell us 5 or 6 of the recipes that's going to be in it. He may throw out there, he said, "I'm going to put some basil and oregano, some garlic." We go, "Oh, it's Italian." It's not. It's something else. God wants us to. So I'm using a carnal illustration, but we do that. We write down the ingredients to say, I'm going to do this, going to cook this. And God says that's not the way it's going to work. And in Gideon's recipe, he's got 32,000 people. And God says that's not, you got too much in the ingredients. He said, "I need you to cut that down." He says, "So you tell them how this is going to, a lot of these guys are going to die. It's going to be bloody. You tell them anybody that's afraid, they need to go on back. No hard feelings." 22,000 people gone. And now they're reduced down to 10,000 soldiers. This is terrible, And Gideon's like, "All right, then we'll cook it this way." And God says, "No, you got too many people, Gideon. We got to reduce that on down. Because if you win with 32,000, people are going to say you're awesome and this mighty army just wiped out. I can't have that, Gideon." And he says, "Gideon, even if you go to war with 10,000, people are going to say, look at Gideon and all, 10,000 men." He said, "I can't have that either. I got to whittle you down." He says, "So I want you to take them down to the brook, down to the water there, and I want you to tell them to drink." And what he said is everyone that would get down and would lap, he said, "Him shall thou set by himself, and everyone that boweth down upon his knees to drink." He said, "I want you to acknowledge both of these people." And the number of them that lapped, putting their hand to their mouth, were 300 men. So basically this is what happened. 9,700 of those guys run down there to that water and just fell down on their knees and basically just stuck their head in the water. They were so thirsty. But 300 of them took the water in their hands and lapped like a dog. In other words, they kept attentive. They were watching because they were in a fight. And so they were drinking, but they were aware. So 300 of them, God said, those are the 300. Now, they're not even going to have a weapon. They're going to have a pitcher, like a vase, a lamp, and a trumpet. Now, the story is incredible. We know that. They broke it up into 3 sections, 100 over here and 100 over here. And what they did was they surrounded the Midianites, if you can call it that. The Midianites had thousands of guys, 301 on Gideon and 300 more. So what they did was they lit those lanterns inside. They set the pitchers inside, the lantern inside the pitcher. Yes, and they lit the lantern. And so they're holding the lantern up inside the pitcher so you can't see the fire. And at the right time, they all blew their trumpets. They smashed that pitcher, and the light shone. 300 of them all the way around them. And the Midianites thought they were surrounded by thousands of people. Midianites trampled over top of each other, stabbed each other. They went chaos, and God gave them the victory with 301 men. Isn't that amazing? And I've been trying to recalibrate, because in ministry, sometimes you have to do that. There are times in ministry where you've got lots and lots of people helping get as much done as you possibly can. Be careful. I mean, try to do it wisely where you don't burn everybody out like I have in the past, and we're suffering from it dearly right now at Revival Tabernacle. A lot of people just burn out, and they, for whatever reason, refuse to go back to the water hole and let God light them up. You can do that. Other people have rekindled the fire, but it's difficult. Once you burn out, it's hard to get it back. And trust me, I've been there many times myself. You just do too much. You don't pray enough, and you work, labor, minister. And my ministry is a ministry of suffering and pain. I mean, pretty much everything. Every time I get a phone call, almost is something bad. You fix something or do something, or this one needs this and this one needs that, and it's morning and it's night. And I mean, 2 nights ago, I'm standing in the rain out in the back parking lot, praying for people. And I mean, that's just the life that we live. We're preaching funerals, not a lot of accolades, not a lot of positivity in your life, and you're having to live on the grace of God, live on the Spirit of God. And if you don't keep yourself connected to Him, then it can be real bad. You can find yourself in trouble. So be careful if you got a lot of people to be wise about it and not burn them out. But it may not always be that way. Now, there's some churches out there that are just growing leaps and bounds, and the favor of God is on them, and I'm so happy for them. That's good. But the vast majority of the churches in America right now have 80 members or less. And that means the vast majority of Christendom. And then you've got smaller churches that are having to compete with basically your theater, movie type, rock and roll concert type. And I'm not even throwing stones. I'm just telling you that we're living in an entertainment type church world now. That if you got a lot of great things, technology and, praise and worship bands, or you're paying, 20, 30,000 a year and whatever, people are going to come because you can entertain them better. And I mean, it's hard to compete against that. And then you've got 70, 80 people, and they become familiar with each other. They know everybody's ins and outs. And before you know it, you find yourself with just a handful of people. So what the Lord has been dealing with me about is refocusing, regrouping, because the people that you used to have, you may not have anymore, but you still have the people you have, right? And so we may not be able to do an ocean worth of ministry. God is going to sort all of that out. Whoever is responsible for the lack of ministry going on, He's got it all under cover. He's keeping track. He's going to bring people to judgment. He's going to bring that up. And folks are going to be in trouble, but not you, because you're going to regroup. You're going to grab the handful of people that does want to work, that hasn't got themselves so busy that they can't do anything. There's some people around you that do love God, and we're going to start celebrating those people. We're going to pray for the others because we love them just as much, and we see potential in them. We see greatness in them, but we're going to regroup because the battle is still going. We don't have time to stop. You don't have time to quit. It's humiliating because we were one time here, now we're down here. We were one time here, now we're back to here. Who cares? Humble our hearts and let's let God do it, because we might mess up and write the ingredients to something God doesn't want us to cook. It may be God that's shaking loose 22,000 fearful people. It may be God that's shaking loose 9,700 people that are just too thirsty for the things of this world. Maybe he wants 300 people that he can use, and that when they win the greatest victory ever, it's going to be God who gets the glory. You see what I'm saying? So what we have to do is, and until that influx of people come, we're going to keep praying to the Lord of the harvest that he'll send laborers into the field. But you and I cannot, under no circumstance, give up. Now, I'm not saying that there might not be a time that we may need to close a ministry down, start another ministry. I think anything that you've been doing, it doesn't work, it either needs to be done away with or it needs to be fixed. And I don't have any problem with that. I'll shut a ministry down and restart it in a second. I mean, it's just silly to spin your wheels for no reason. We don't have time for that. So we got a great war ahead of us. And let us let God deal with the people that are not fighting. Those that went home, God's got them. He's going to deal with them. The folks that didn't drink right, they're too thirsty for this world, God's going to deal with them. But God's also going to reward those that are faithful. And so stay faithful and let God reward you. Humble ourselves. God will exalt us. And so I salute all of those out there. I don't care what church you're going to or what pastor you're helping. Thank you for going to church. Thank you for being hungry for the word. Thank you for showing interest in what the man and woman of God is doing. Thank you for that. And I want to thank all of those at Revival Tabernacle that are faithful. And you do want to hear me teach, and you do want to hear me preach, and you feel like I have something to offer you to help you grow in grace and the ministry. I thank you and appreciate that. Let's go forward and let's get the job done. All right. So maybe it's 300 that God wants you to work with. It's okay. You're going to win. God bless.